Well, Mr. President-elect, I am proud to join you on what will be a difficult and exciting adventure in this new century.
Former First Lady, future top diplomat. Despite having spent much of the previous 2 years questioning her foreign policy credentials, Barack Obama nominates Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State. But what does this mean for U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Mariam Namazi. U.S. President-elect Barack Obama announced Monday that his former rival, New York Senator Hillary Clinton, will be his new Secretary of State. After her appointment, Clinton stated that leaving the Senate would be difficult for her, but she believed that joining Obama's administration was the best way for her to continue to serve the country. Well, Hillary Clinton harshly criticized Obama's foreign policy positions during her campaign, but now she will be the face of that administration abroad. So the question is, what does this mean for U.S. foreign policy? And is it a move away from the positions Obama was campaigning on? So let's take a closer look at where Clinton stands on some of these issues. Well, Clinton voted in favor of the Iraq war, even though she's been critical of the war's execution. Clinton says ending the war is important, but she's more reluctant than Obama to commit to a firm timetable for withdrawing U.S. troops. Like Obama, she thinks the U.S. should focus on fighting al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan and calls for more U.S. troops in the region. During her campaign, Clinton denounced Obama's readiness to meet the leaders of Iran and Syria as naive. She threatened to obliterate Iran if it ever attacks Israel. Clinton is considered a favorite of the pro-Israel lobby in the U.S. She says the Israeli-Arab conflict needs to be solved, but she's not expected to put any pressure on Israel. Now, concerning her foreign policy expertise, opinions are divided. She's got some first-hand experience of almost 80 countries, but it's the kind of experience that you get as a First Lady travelling with her husband. This is what a former lawyer of the Clintons and Obama advisor had to say earlier this year. There's no evidence that she asserted herself in any of the crises that took place during the Clinton presidency. White House records show that she was consistently absent when critical decisions were being made and that her trips abroad were largely ceremonial. Well, in spite of these doubts, Obama seems to be expressing a very different view of Clinton now.
I have known Hillary Clinton as a friend, a colleague, a source of counsel, and a tough campaign opponent. She possesses an extraordinary intelligence and a remarkable work ethic. I am proud that she will be our next Secretary of State. She's an American of tremendous stature who will have my complete confidence, who knows many of the world's leaders, who will command respect in every capital, and who will clearly have the ability to advance our interests around the world.
Well, joining us now are our guests in Washington, D.C., Annie Lowrey. She's a journalist at the New Yorker magazine's D.C. bureau. In Jacksonville, Florida, Pierre Tristram, he's the Middle East editor at About.com. And in Amman, Jordan, Dr. Azam Tamimi, he's the director of the Institute for Islamic Political Thought. Thank you for joining us. Pierre Tristram, if I can come to you first. We've heard Barack Obama speak about the need to restore America's standing in the world. Is Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, the right person for this job?
Well, I'm not so sure that she is. I'm just concerned about why, of all the people that Obama could have chosen, he picked the person with the least experience, who could not just sit down with any of the leaders that she's going to have to deal with and hit the ground running. My perspective is, if I'm a Middle Easterner, if I'm a Palestinian, an Israeli, I'd want somebody who actually has dealt with these issues frequently and candidly, and Hillary Clinton has not. She's a terrific politician. She's a terrific domestic policy expert. She's simply not the kind of foreign policy face that you'd want at state, dealing with the issues that are going to be as challenging as they are in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and so on, and in Iran.
Annie Lowrey, do you agree that Hillary Clinton may be an effective politician, but she's simply not experienced enough, that she doesn't have the credibility perhaps to take on complex issues of the Middle East?
I don't. You know, I think she has extraordinary stature abroad. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who she and Obama name as undersecretaries, particularly for issues in the Middle East through India and Pakistan. That said, you know, again, she has extraordinary stature abroad, and I think that she'll work well with Susan Rice and with Jim Jones and with Robert Gates to craft you know, the policies, the diplomatic policies. And importantly, it seems that Obama is gesturing to having a national security team, a diplomatic team in which she will work. So I think that there's been too much emphasis on the fact that she doesn't have as much experience as other people did. I think that she's shown herself to be a remarkable politician, including on foreign affairs issues.
Dr. Azam Tamimi, it's quite a remarkable U-turn by Barack Obama, isn't it, given that he spent the past 2 years criticizing her foreign policy credentials?
Well, I think we're used to this sort of politics in America. Campaigning for the elections is one thing, and then appointing people for the job is something else. One must not forget that in the American politics, the state secretary does not design the policy. The state secretary implements the policy. Condoleezza Rice was appointed Secretary of State with nearly zero knowledge of the Middle East, zero knowledge of experience regarding the Middle East. But she had to execute a policy which George Bush and his aides designed. Now, similarly, here in this case, it is Obama and his close associates and advisors who will be making the policy vis-a-vis the Middle East and the rest of the world, I'm sure. And then Mrs. Clinton will be in charge of implementing that policy.
Beatrice, let me put that point to you that perhaps you can't put too much emphasis on the Secretary of State. Yes, of course, it's a very important role, but that ultimately it will be Barack Obama setting the agenda, and she will have to essentially follow orders.
Well, that's true, I mean, I would second what Ms. Lowry said about stature. She does carry the weight that we know Hillary Clinton can carry, but more than that, even if she was just implementing the policy of Obama, my concern is, does the trust exist between Obama and Clinton where he can trust her blindly to carry out the policies he sets out? And from the history we know between them, that trust simply does not exist.
Annie Lowry, do you agree with that? That yes, Hillary Clinton campaigned for Obama, but they've never actually had a close personal relationship. How can we be sure that she will put forward the president's ambitions over her own?
Well, I think it's interesting that basically the best sign that we have that Barack Obama trusts Hillary Clinton, trusts her judgment, and wants her to act in this capacity is the remarkable fact that he named her to this job. He had no real political need to do so. She would have remained in the Senate happily and been a very, very productive senator. And I think that it's fascinating that he chose her. And clearly he does trust her and does want the weight that she carries internationally on his team. So, you know, in this sense, I think that he has shown great prudence in his appointments thus far, and has shown a willingness to take on people who he might not personally be really great friends with, but whom he professionally admires. And I certainly think that, you know, nobody questions her intellect, and the questions about her judgment may have been answered during the primary, and I do think that they respect each other.
Dr. Azam Tamimi, how might a chilly personal relationship between the President and the Secretary of State play out? How might it affect Hillary Clinton's ability to do her job abroad?
I think this is not primarily about Hillary and her ability. It's about uniting the democratic community together in one camp behind this new president. Hillary Clinton had a big share of the Democratic Party supporters and of the electorate, of the people who were involved in the campaign, and there are many people who will be advising Obama on foreign policy who were very close to the Clintons when they were in the White House. So this is what it is about, because I don't think we need to overemphasize the fact that a foreign secretary, a state secretary is simply executing policy. I'm reading a book at the moment about what went on during the Camp David talks in the late 90s, and I've discovered that Madeleine Albright in many instances was the last to know, because it was the advisors and the close associates of the president at that time, Bill Clinton, who were actually trusted to carry out the job.
Pierre Tristram, do you think she'll be trusted to carry out the job?
Well, that may have been the case in certain instances with Madeleine Albright, but I mean, it depends on who your Secretary of State is. You can't really think back to, say, James Baker and think Baker was just carrying out Bush's order. Baker was shaping policy as much as he was carrying out Bush's orders, because Bush trusted him. We're talking about the first Bush, obviously. Bush trusted him implicitly. And Baker was a strong implementer as well as a strong shaper of policy. And he was the sort of personality who, the moment he walked into the room, whoever was sitting at the other end of the table knew that he was speaking for the president, but also that he had the complete freedom to shape what was going to happen in that room at that moment. And he was very effective in that sense. He's probably the most effective Secretary of State we've had in the Middle East since Kissinger. Not that Kissinger was that great in the actual final achievements, but we're talking about strong personalities that were able to get things done. When Hillary Clinton's going to walk into the room, say, to negotiate between Palestinians and Israelis, my question is going to be, are they going to, the people around the table, going to be thinking, well, how much of this is politics for the people back home, and how much is it genuine attempts to get something done right here in the Middle East?
Well, we're going to be taking a closer look at that after the break. When we come back, is the Obama promise to put the Israeli-Palestinian conflict back on the American agenda an opportunity that shouldn't be missed? Stay with us.